What does it take for a regular climber to reach double digits in the bouldering world? A few months ago, I took a climbing trip to do some outdoor climbing. As primarily an indoor boulderer, I was surprised at how differently outside rock hits, and basically felt like I had to relearn climbing. But I wanted to set myself a new challenge. My new goal is to climb an outdoor V10. But here's the catch: I'm going to train for it without using a hangboard. So why no hangboard? First, let me go over how I got to where I am. I started climbing about 3 years ago, towards the end of May 2021. It started off as a form of cross-training for running, but soon running turned into my cross-training for climbing. I fell in love with the sport and started trying to push myself to see where I could get. I 100% was using strength to help me progress through the grades quickly. But I was fully convinced that finger strength was the primary thing holding me back. And about a year into my climbing journey, I started adding some hangboard training, trying to up that finger strength and improve that weakness. And it worked. I quickly shot up the grades at my gym, going from getting my first real V6 to sending a V8 in just 6 months. Also, probably a good time to mention that the grading that I am using is very subjective, and mostly based off of the Northern California / touchstone grading, and probably will be different from yours, but it is the consistent grading system that I am using for progress tracking. At this point, I was essentially projecting 3 times a week, with 2 days of max hangs sprinkled in there. I was seeing massive strength gains in my hands, being able to do moves that I would have thought impossible just a few months earlier. As I mentioned earlier, I was a runner in my past and trained hard for that, and with that, I ended up creating a lot of running training programs for myself and some of my friends. So I should have known that the way that I was climbing is pretty much the equivalent of doing a hard track workout for every single workout, and that is the fastest way to get injured. And that is exactly what happened. I started feeling something in my middle finger A2 pulley, which eventually turned out to be a pretty bad strain. Thankfully, it never ruptured, but I essentially was not able to crimp without pain for about 6 months due to me trying to ignore it and then having no idea how to help improve it. While in my denial phase, I quickly saw my progress going backwards, and I would try climbs where I did not need to crimp with my left hand in attempts to hold on to the progress. And soon, the sends stopped coming. However, things were not all bad during this time. This is when I actually learned about group types, other than crimp everything and pray you stick on the wall. I realized that my open hand strength was basically non-existent, and I could use that to save some energy. I also started paying more attention to my body position and how to really use my feet to get into positions where I didn't need to use a full strength grip to get the move. Key lessons that I am still taking into consideration in my climbing now. But my finger was still injured, and after finally accepting that, I started taking the steps to research what to do to help improve that. A key aspect of that was Emil's No Hangs video on daily easy hangboarding. Due to my relatively weak fingers, I wanted an easy way to lightly load my fingers in a measurable and consistent way. This would be hard for me to do with a hangboard because I would have to use a pulley system in order to consistently get a specific weight. So, I designed the Clavelian Designs training block to solve this problem. I used the block instead of a hangboard to load my fingers using dumbbells, which allows me to easily control the weight at ranges well below my body weight. Overall, it ended up taking about a full year for me to regain my strength and confidence on the wall. Now, after about 6 months of being back and consistent, I feel as strong as ever, successfully sending many indoor V7s and a few more V8s. However, I have not done any hangboard training this time around, and I'm not planning to. My goal this time around is to create a structured climbing routine where finger strength is not the highest priority. Instead, I'm going to continue on what I learned while injured, focusing on how I can improve my movement and body position to get better at climbing, rather than just relying on finger strength. I fell into the noob trap, where stronger fingers equals better climbing, but in reality, there's so much more to it than just that. So what will this look like? Here is a sneak peek of my weekly climbing training plan. Also, plan might not be the best word. It probably will be more like a training guide. Let's take my endurance climbing session for example. I recently started rope climbing with some coworkers, which is perfect for an endurance session. However, they might not always be free on Thursdays, so I may end up switching where that specific session falls, depending on everyone's schedule. But there are some key concepts I want to keep. I think it is super important to have at least one full rest day each week. And I like to do that before I have a hard day, so that way I can be fresh and make the most of my try-hard session. I also try to have my 2 hard days as far away from each other as possible. And then from there, fill in the gaps with easy days or technique days or endurance days. And sometimes I'll drop days if I'm feeling tired or sore, or switch up a hard day to an easier day. The key is listening to what my body is telling me. But overall, this plan or guide is the maximum I plan to do, not the minimum. So what is the point of these videos? My goal is to share how I go about my training and become the best climber that I personally can be. There probably will be many adjustments that I have to make as I try and figure this out, but I plan to keep y'all updated on it. Also, just remember that what I do is not necessarily a training plan recommendation. It has not even really been tested. I currently am the first test subject for this plan. But instead, this is more of just an outline that I want to try out that focuses on injury prevention and my personal strengths, while really working on my weaknesses. Your strengths and weaknesses may be different. But first, before I see how the structure helps with my climbing, I first need to see where I am at now. A couple months ago, I went to my first outdoor bouldering session in Berkeley, and I got wrecked. I was working on a V10 called the Great Stone Face. I was able to get a few of the easier moves after many attempts, but kept getting shut down by the crux move with almost no progress. Maybe it is only going to take a few weeks to figure this out and send it, or maybe it will take a few months. My goal is still to send a V10, and I want to show you what it takes. Maybe my current intensity will be enough, or maybe it will just be the building blocks for me to train harder later. And who knows how long this is going to take. It could take a few months to a year, or maybe even longer. Only time and effort will tell. So, let's find out.